Hi, I'm Brandon,
And I'm Megan.
and we're on a journey to improve our marriage, our family, our faith, our fitness, well, just about everything.
Along the way, we might accidentally give a tiny bit of solid advice, so join us as we chat each week.
Welcome to the Fools in Love podcast.
Hey guys, happy Wednesday. We're back at it with another episode of Fools in Love, and today we're talking about if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. We usually think of the phrase as what we're saying to other people, but today we're going to flip the script a little bit and talk about how what we say to others about others impacts them, our relationships with them, and even beyond. We teach our kids all about how important it is not to say mean things or speak about others in a way that doesn't benefit them. But then we kind of turn around and gossip or put others down all the time, even if we think we're being careful. But why do we do this? It's because we're insecure about something, or we want to turn the attention to someone else, or we're jealous, or sometimes we're just being mean and petty.
Yeah, you see this a lot with celebrities and people in the media. There's basically always going to be critics, and it's always easy to find flaws in other people, isn't it? Me, I can talk as a perfect person, I say sarcastically, but it's always easier to find flaws in other people. You look at them, and it's real easy to pick out things and to look at them in a negative light. And the challenge today would be, 1, why are we doing this? And 2, what can we do to fix that?
So this topic actually came to light a few weeks ago when we were walking into our house. Our neighbor's toddler was outside without a parent, and our 4-year-old daughter said, loudly mind you, "Guys, why is that kid outside all by himself again?" And I died a little bit because I don't know where those parents are, and I was hoping that they weren't right there listening to her say that, because obviously she didn't come up with that on her own. Because we actually have previously said things, and I'm not proud of this. We shouldn't have ever said it, especially in front of her, but we've said things about their parenting and things we don't really know about because we don't really know them, and we should have never said a thing.
Yeah, but we catch ourselves doing this all the time, and kids aside, you just really sometimes have to check yourself when this is happening, because I know with this same set of neighbors, and don't we all have at least one neighbor that we're not very fond of, but I'll just say comments or I'll have thoughts in my mind of what they're doing, how they're parenting, how their house looks. We really do this with everything. It doesn't have to be a neighbor. I do this all the time in traffic, and I think, oh, you're in such a hurry. I guess you're more important than me, or I get really mad if someone is going really slow when I happen to be in a hurry. And is it really their fault that I happen to be in a hurry? But you can really go to any topic along the spectrum, and it's just so easy to find things to speak negatively about. And really, until you start recognizing it, and like Megan said, when we think about our daughter saying it, and you think about how we set up younger kids, we just teach them to say something kind, and we rebuke them if they say anything negative. Yet as adults, what are we modeling for them?
Absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times we've told Harlan to be nice to her brother, and then we're turning around and saying mean things about others, usually without even realizing we're doing it. It's just so ingrained, I think, in all of us, and I guess especially us since we are talking about it today. But it really is. It's so easy to look at other people and judge them, but if we truly think about how it feels to be judged, I think we would do it a little bit less. If we put ourselves in other people's shoes, then I think we would stop judging and stop commenting and stop being the mean people we are and saying things that shouldn't be said.
And just think about it, really, when you've heard someone speak negatively about you, or maybe you didn't hear it, but you heard from someone else that someone was speaking poorly about you, or in the days of social media, if you come across people who have bad things to say about you, it's really easy to get offended by that and to let it get to you. But the problem is we do the same thing to other people all the time. Whether we're typing it on a social media account, whether we're just saying it out loud, or we're thinking it to ourselves, we're doing it all the time. We're talking to other people about other people. We're judging other people. And when we don't want that brought on ourselves, then why in turn do we turn around and do that to everyone else?
And I think we're also guilty of doing this inside of relationships or about our own relationship. I know, especially as teen girls and young women, the tendency is to talk to your girlfriends about your relationship. And then suddenly we're grown up and we've never learned that discretion. How many women still refer to their husband as their third or fourth child and talk about the socks on the floor? Or how many men are sitting around talking about their girlfriend or wife as if they're just a nag and that's pretty much it? We do it all the time, and there's several issues that can arise when we're using friends and family as our number one go-to for complaints about specifically our significant others.
Yeah, I know as men, we don't really get deep into relationships. We're talking to other men, but what we will say is, you'll just say lines like, "Oh, the old ball and chain," or if my wife will give me permission, or you just like little side comments that are just kind of minimalizing your wife. And even if you say it as a joke, you're still minimalizing her and you're minimalizing your relationship, because is that really what you mean? And if that is really what you mean, then maybe you need to take a deeper look. But if you say something enough, it becomes the truth. And that goes with everything. If you say it enough, if you start to get it ingrained in your brain, then it becomes a part of your beliefs, and it just is going to become true. It's the self-fulfilling prophecy. So if I decide that Meg is nagging me and I'm telling everyone that she's a nag, they in turn might be just following along as a friend and be like, "Oh yeah, well, she shouldn't be doing that," and blah, blah. And it just affects how I perceive her, and it affects me every time and every interaction we have from that point on. And like Meg was saying, if you decide to run to a friend and talk to them about how irritating your wife is or your partner is, then you're going to start believing it, and they might even give you fuel to increase those feelings.
Yeah, by focusing on the negative in those conversations with others, we're just reinforcing the idea to ourselves that our spouse or partner is, the fill in the blank. They're annoying, they're a child, they're a jerk, whatever that thought is. And even though we're probably saying those things out of frustration or anger, if we keep saying those things aloud, we're going to internalize them too and begin to see it as the truth, even when it's not. Even when 99.9% of the time, we don't feel those things about that person.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, when you're telling other people about it, I mean, obviously it's okay to talk to other people about it, but talking to people in a negative way about your partner is really not only shaping how you feel and how you perceive the relationship, but it's shaping the way how that person is going to perceive your partner. And if I'm always talking about Meg in a very negative light, then the people who are hearing that, they don't get the other side of the story. And really, if I'm just lightly talking about it even, they'll perceive the way she is, and that will in turn change their opinions of her and change their opinions of our relationship. And I get we've talked about before not worrying about the opinions of other people, but I think you still want an honest perception to be out there in the world about how your relationship is. And you don't want people to think that you're in an unhappy relationship if you're not, just based on side comments you're saying or just negative down talk.
Right, exactly. Family and friends have such a great influence on our lives. We just are always going to take into account the way they see us and our relationship. And not that it's all about what they think, because it surely isn't, but we do want to make sure they have at least a pretty accurate understanding of what we're doing and how our relationship is.
Yeah, and I think as we get older, I mean, we're starting to get in our mid-30s here. Many younger people that we come in contact with are going to perceive our relationship, and they might think that that's the way a relationship is supposed to be. So if you're modeling that for someone else, including your kids, and they hear that down talk about your partner, then they just perceive that that's okay, that's acceptable. It is acceptable in our culture, if we're all going to be honest. Every sitcom you watch, every show you watch, it just minimalizes the partner, especially the man. He's usually some bumbling idiot. The wife is the mom figure who's taking care of the whole family. And when the dad's put in charge, all things go to hell. And there's really no other way to say it. If you watch any show, any comedy, that's exactly the way it is. So our culture perceives men as being a moron and perceives women as being a maternal figure for everyone, including the husband, as their child. And that's not how we should be looking at relationships.
And then, of course, as we're texting our BFFs about the same types of things, we're only reinforcing what culture is already telling us. So it's just kind of a problem that we could really do a lot better job on in making a difference in how we're teaching our children and how we're raising up our families to see other people and other relationships. You might have the greatest relationship ever, but if you tell your family or your friends about every single little fight or little thing that happened, they're not going to think your relationship is going well. And once they have an inaccurate view of your relationship because you're only presenting one side, they might actually treat your relationship as unhealthy and start acting accordingly.
Yeah, and one of the things I've experienced, not so much in our relationship, but just in talking with other people about their relationships, is they want to dig in on their spouse or significant other, especially when things are going poorly. They really just want to hammer home all the negative things, and they just start rambling on and going off about all the things that they have and all the things that are wrong with their relationship, all the things that are wrong with their partner, all of their shortcomings. And then what ends up happening is later down the road, they work things out. But then me, as a person from the outside looking at their relationship, I'm supposed to all of a sudden just accept them for a person that they are when I was told all about the person that they were. And I'm sitting here holding this opinion of them, and it's very hard to change that in my eyes because I've just heard my friend talking about how bad this person is, and then the next day or the next week or the next month, everything's great. They're the greatest person ever. And it's really hard to change people's opinions of you or your partner once you've already laid all this evidence, supposed evidence or opinions on them.
When I was young, when I was in high school and dating guys, I was one of the girls that always wanted to report every single little detail of the relationship. And it never went well. Thankfully, I'm more mature now. I've really come to realize that it's very damaging to air all your dirty laundry. Not that there's a whole lot of dirty laundry going on, but all those little things, really, really damaging because I want people to see Brandon for who he is, that he's a dedicated, amazing husband and father. I don't want to spend my time texting my friends and telling my family every single thing that he's done and every time that he's not his best, because 99% of the time he's that amazing, wonderful dude I'm telling you about. And if I don't report him as such, then no one's going to know that he deserves to be recognized for who he is in a very positive way.
Yeah, I think the issue too is, obviously, I want to preface this by saying it's important to have friends. It's important to have relationships where you can confide in someone else, and you can certainly talk about your relationship with them. That's not what we're trying to say. But I think it's a slippery slope when you talk about this negative down talk about your partner, because what ends up happening is every time you have, like Megan was saying, every time you have a little fight, every time you have a little thing, if you're constantly going to your friend about the issues that you're having and never actually going to your partner, that's going to be a problem, because all you're doing is getting the viewpoint and opinion of someone else who's not in your marital relationship. So that's going to be a problem when eventually you decide, whatever feedback your friend provides you, to take it back to your partner, because by that point, you've talked to your friend about all these things. And in your mind, you've discussed all these things. The problem is you haven't discussed them with your partner. And if you haven't discussed them with your partner, then all of a sudden it's going to tailspin. And every single thing then in my mind, or every single thing that I do, is going to be a negative to Meg. She's going to look at me and she's going to say, well, my friend said he shouldn't do this, that, or the other, and her husband doesn't do this, that, or the other. And then every single thing I do is irritating to her, and then she just keeps reporting back to her other girlfriends, but then we never actually have the discussion. And by the point that she decides we are going to have the discussion, she's already irritated, annoyed, already has an opinion formulated in her mind of me and what I'm going to say. So it really sets me up in a very difficult spot because, first of all, in most cases, I've found you get blindsided a lot of the times by these things because you're not aware that they're an issue, because if your partner doesn't tell you that they're an issue, you could get blindsided by them, and then you're already taken aback, and your spouse is coming at you in a way that's not really how you want to have a conversation. You want to sit down when these things come up and have someone to actually talk to and confide in and work through your issues if you have them. But you don't want your friend to be the only person that you're talking to about it. You need to also remember your partner who happens to also be in the relationship.
Yes. I definitely have friends that I will absolutely talk to them about anything going on that's big in my life. And I don't mean by any means that you shouldn't do that. But like Brandon was saying, it's just really important that you don't let that person take the place. And instead of talking to the real person who needs to know about everything, you're instead taking it to somebody who isn't involved directly in that relationship. The other thing is that obviously we're talking here about generally healthy relationships. Obviously, if there's any abuse or neglect going on inside of a relationship, that is not the time to stay quiet. That is not the time to not tell anybody. In that case, you should be shouting to everybody that will listen about what's going on. So I just wanted to make that note too.
Yeah, and not only when you get into this place where you're negatively talking, first of all, it's not good for you. It's not good for the person hearing about it, but it certainly isn't good for your partner. And what could end up happening is you can really damage their self-esteem and their confidence, especially if you're coming to them after you've already been irritated and giving everything to your friends, and then you come back and they're kind of taken aback. It can really put them in a very negative place, and it's really not setting things up to have a solid conversation about it either, because they're already going to be on the defensive, because you immediately sense that when someone is irritated, at least I do, you kind of go on the defensive and you take a step back and you almost feel attacked. And that's really not the way that you want to bring up these conversations with your partner. And you really don't want to be in a place where you're not speaking to them at all.
Did you notice that literally no matter what we talk about, we always end up talking about conversations? I think we're really big on communication.
Yeah, totally. But it's because I can't give a greater piece of advice than that. I really can't. I mean, communication is key. And so often when I talk to other people and I hear about the relationships, it's like, well, have you talked to your partner about this? And they're like, right, you're talking to me, but have you actually talked to your partner about it? Well, no, because they'll do this, 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 or this. Or they'll say this, 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 or this. Or it'll just cause bigger issues. Will it? Will it really? Like, going to the person and actually talking to them about it, is it going to cause deeper issues than just going and bashing them to everyone who will lend you an ear? Like, how is that? That's crazy to me. But the other thing I'll say with this, and we talked a lot about relationships and your partner, is we do this with everyone. We do this with everyone. Just try to recognize how you're talking about others when it comes up. I think so often, and Meg brought this to my attention at one point in our relationship, but you can get into a trend where you're just finding the negative in everything and you're talking negatively about other people. And the problem is it affects your whole mindset. When you're constantly focusing on the negative of other people, usually, like Megan said, that could be because you're jealous of them, or because you have personal insecurities about yourself that they're reflecting on you. But you got to pay attention, because many times once you start to realize the patterns of your thoughts when you're looking at other people and the feelings that you have, you really notice that there's a lot of it going to the negative. And what you need to do is first understand that you are focusing on the negative, recognize it, but then turn and make that change and really start focusing on the positive.
And once you do start focusing on the positive, it's going to affect other people too. They're going to notice that not only you're happier and you tend to say things that are more positive about others, but then you're not damaging anyone's self-esteem and confidence in the meantime. You're actually building them and lifting them up.
Yeah, and as we look around at the world, I don't think anyone could argue that we could use a little bit more positivity. So if you start looking at people in a lens of positivity and give them some positive talk, it changes everyone around you. It really does. The important thing is to live with gratitude and strive for a positive outlook. The fact is, nobody is perfect. And yes, this includes you. You are not perfect. If you find yourself talking down about other people, you got to recognize it. 1. 2, you have to forgive yourself because guess what? You're not perfect and it's going to take a little bit of a learning curve. And then 3, just do better the next time around.
Being positive in your interaction helps with people you're in contact all the time, including your partner, your kids, your friends, your coworkers, your neighbors. But it's also completely helpful for complete strangers. We should definitely be striving for positive interactions and friendly and encouraging words with people we don't even know.
One of the things I've realized is negative talk and behaviors cause a ripple effect. And it goes the same way for positive talk and positive behaviors. If you just think about it, if I'm talking poorly about Meg to a friend, okay, that friend might go on and report it to his wife, and it might affect their relationship and how they interact. And then the wife might take what she heard, and it'll go on and on and on. And it ends up affecting people that you didn't even know. That somehow your relationship and how you're talking about your relationship affects people long down the road that you have no clue about. And that's true with anything. You never know if you're positive or negative to someone, how it can affect them and how it's going to carry on. But think about that when you're approaching the world today. Think about it with a lens of positivity. If I hold the door for someone, or if I take the extra effort to speak kindly to someone, you never know what effect that could have for that person on the rest of their day, their week, or their life.
Yeah, you hear all the time about those stories where little tiny things made a big, huge impact. Like somebody was about to kill themselves or something horrible and tragic, and one person stopped and said something just little and small to what we would think, but it changed their lives and turned their lives around and for the better. I mean, those stories really, really do happen. So if we're always focusing on the bad things we can say about people and never lifting others up, then we're just perpetuating the problem.
It is really a cycle, okay? It starts with you and how you approach every situation and every person that you come in contact with. This goes the same way for whether you're being negative or positive, but the cycle will continue. And one of the things you have to recognize is how you are actually talking to other people, how you are viewing the world, and how you're letting other people affect how you view the world. Because the thing is, we all have critics. You're always going to be able to find someone who doesn't like you, no matter what you do. It's how you react to those critics that determine the effects that has on your life and how you are actually interacting with the people around you. You can let it affect you in a negative way and then take that negative talk and pass it along down the line, or you can turn it into a positive, ignore it maybe, or just turn it into some kind of positive interaction where you can push that and pass that along to someone else. But you can't minimalize the negative talk. I feel like it's so easy, especially in today's day and age, to get stuck and focus on the negative, when really it's all in the mindset and how you approach it. And if you approach it with an attitude of gratitude and positivity, it can make all the difference in the world. And the better you understand this, the better your mindset will be, the better your life will be, and better your interactions with everyone will be.
Now go out there and give someone a kind word today, and we'll see you back here next week.
Hey, thanks for tuning in another show of Fools in Love podcast. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to our podcast or follow us over on Facebook at Fools in Love Podcast, or hit us up on Instagram. Megan's at This Average Mom, and I'm at Brandon Giggling. We'd love to hear from you over there. Talk soon.